But let's talk just briefly once more about the migrant thing, because it has been a big week, and we are talking to Henry Bolton about it later on. But the Bibby Stockholm has proved to be yet another kind of, sideshow, hasn't it? And it's not really going to solve anything. It's probably never going to be full of anybody.
But actually, of course, the reality is it was could have been more than filled up just by yesterday's arrivals alone.
Well,
750 were waiting for the exact
Can you imagine?
number.
I mean, not enough room in one barge for the people that arrived in one day.
We always knew this was the case. I mean, the whole thing has been a sort of a distraction and a sideshow from the reality, which is the government has utterly failed to protect our borders. That's the bottom line. They are wasting huge sums of our cash, and the backlog grows. And what I can say is, just to give you a little sort of heads up, is that there is going to be an exclusive that I'm going to be revealing on Sunday morning. Okay. So watch this space.
I should look forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely look forward to that.
Sunday sermon as well,
The Sunday sermon will be an absolute blockbuster. It will be a real sizzler. There's so much to go at. I might have to do a double sermon. God, heaven knows, I might even have to get you involved just to help along. I mean, anything could happen.
It could be possible. I mean, I may be available at the weekend. I'm not sure yet. I'd have to ask the dog. See if I can be spared.
You might be going for a walk along the sea.
It could well be, because I was in Edinburgh last week, as you were. Actually, I should ask you about that, because we both appeared opposite Alex Salmond with David Davis to argue a case, both of which we lost, only because I'd have to say the partisan nature of the crowd, who were all Alex Salmond's
the crowd, let's be really clear, Edinburgh is Remain essential, so to go there into the sort of the teeth of the battle, so to speak, to argue that Brexit is a great opportunity, which obviously is what I did argue, and whereas Alex was trying to say that it's a disaster, I was not particularly well received when I said the only disaster I could see standing in Scotland was the complete disastrous mismanagement by the SNP of the Scottish health system and education system.
I was arguing,
it didn't go down very well.
I was arguing, funny enough, against the right of public sector workers to strike, which is particularly apposite given that the doctors are out again today for 4 more days. And Alex said to me yesterday on this show that I was doing fine until right near the end, when I started to slag off every single public sector worker in the audience. They all voted against me. But we won the moral high ground against Mick Lynch, who brought in a couple of flying pickets with him to start shouting at me and heckling me throughout my appearance. So, he didn't come for dinner afterwards either, proving once and for all that socialists are not very sociable.
I mean, that's absolutely right. No, so it was a great experience, and there was some very nice, they've terribly woke up in Edinburgh.
They are.
So woke. You've never seen so many flags of all sorts of colours. I lost track of all the different rainbow colours.
I upset them with the use of a particular word, which I'll tell you about later. But there we are. But let's talk a bit about the doctors, because here we are again. We've been told already that something like 750,000 procedures have been halted and postponed as a result of these strikes. I mean, when are they going to realise that people do not sympathise with them? They just don't.
I think that's right, and they're putting forward their case, but their pay demand of 35% is just patently absurd. It just lacks any credibility, and so not unsurprisingly, the government have essentially sort of said to them, look, this is just not a credible, sensible way to approach things, and I think they've lost the sort of sympathy that one would normally expect them to have, and there is actually a huge range. The word junior doctor it's a bit of a misnomer.
It is a misnomer.
because
well, as is the BMA, the British Medical Association.
It should be called the BMU because it's a union. It's not actually some form of association of goodness. But you can be a junior doctor of 6 months standing, but also of 10 years standing. So there's a vast range across it. But I don't think they're helping themselves. And meanwhile, one of Rishi Sunak's key 5 pledges, which is to bring waiting lists down, actually the exact opposite is happening. As every month goes by, the list is going up by 100,000 plus, and that's the official list. What people don't perhaps appreciate is that there is a huge multi-million long list of people. Basically, there's a waiting list to join the waiting list, and there is active things going on that goes on within the NHS to delay you before you join the waiting list. This is all complete and
it's nonsense.
Madness.
I mean, looking at the numbers of people who wait for 4 hours or more, even just in A&E, it's been ridiculously high and has gone up every single year since 2020. Now, you can't tell me that that's the government's fault. You know, I just refuse to believe it. The people running the NHS need to stand up and be counted and admit that they don't know what they're doing. Because here's something that will not surprise you. Dr. Robert Lawrenson, co-chairman of the Junior Doctors Committee at the BMA, has basically said that despite the fact that in Scotland junior doctors have accepted a government pay increase of 12.4%, he says they would not accept it here because the governments are very different. And that tells you all you need to know. It's not about money, it's not about health, it's about government.
That's right, but we know, even though they've settled that, we know that the health outcomes in Scotland, for example, they're the worst not only in the United Kingdom, they're the worst in the whole of Europe.
Yes.
And so, in a sense, the Scots have, unfortunately, the Scottish Government has got absolutely nothing to crow about, but these waiting lists, they were going up before the strikes. And fundamentally, the NHS needs a total overhaul.
Well, I've got some
reform.
even better news for you if you think that it's bad in Scotland. In Wales, right, despite the population being 18 times lower than it is in England, there are 100 times more people waiting for treatment for more than 2 years in Wales than there are in England. So the Welsh health service, run by Labour, is actually an awful lot worse. And this is not me defending the Tories, it's just proving that it's not the Tories who are messing up the NHS.
And I think that's the key point, actually. In a sense, it's not actually the political parties, it's the woeful management, waste of resources, wokeness of the individual services, whether it's in Scotland, Wales, England. They're all failing to a varying catastrophic degree.
Yes.